Okay, so continuing on with our lecture here. So this is now the basic structure. Okay, so this is now the basic structure of the skeletal muscle. So what do we mean by basic structure? So when we're looking at the muscle, we have structures of it that is known as your fascicle, which is going to be the bundle of your skeletal muscle fibers. And I'll show you this in a minute. Within a fascicle, each fiber is surrounded by connective tissue. Okay, fascicle is also surrounded. The fascicle. Oh, got it. Okay, sorry about that. So within a fascicle, each of the fiber is going to be surrounded by a connective tissue, and the fascicle is going to be surrounded by a connective tissue as well. So what do we mean by that? So let's say this is your muscle fiber. So this is your single muscle fiber right over here, right? So this single muscle fiber right over here is going to be surrounded by a connective tissue. And let me just change the color here. So basically this is now going to be surrounded by, so this blue line here, this is your individual connective tissue right over here. And we will learn what these names are as we go on with our lecture as well. So this is now your fiber surrounded by the connective tissue. And then these fibers here, we are going to have a collection of fibers. So what do we mean by collection of fibers? So now we are going to have more of these fibers, right? And so this one here is going to be separated as such, for example, another one here, and another one right over here. So in here, we have all these individual fibers right here. So these are all muscle fibers. So these muscle fibers right here, right? We have this one as well, here as well, and so on and so forth. So you guys get the idea, right? So each one of these right over here, these collection of muscle fibers, this is now known as your fascicle. So this would be another collection right over here. So this right here is a fascicle collection of your muscle fibers. So this fascicle right here, so this one is now your fascicle. This fascicle is also going to be surrounded by another connective tissue. So let me just change the color here as well. So now we have this fascicle right over here that is going to be surrounded by this magenta color. It's not too vivid. Let's change it some more. Let's just turn this into a black one. Okay, there we go. So this is now going to be your connective tissue that is surrounding this fascicle right over here. Okay, and then another one here, and so on and so forth. So you guys get the idea. So now you have a connective tissue surrounding this fascicle. You have a connective tissue surrounding this fiber, muscle fiber right over here. So that is each fiber being surrounded by connective tissue and fascicle being surrounded by a connective tissue as well. So the next one here is your fascia. So what is a fascia? So basically when we talk about a fascia right here, these are now connective tissue that covers the muscles and they could extend to become its tendon. So if this is now going to be a muscle right here, now this is the whole entire muscle. So what I want you to know is that this whole entire muscle, this is going to be a collection of fascicles right over here. Okay? And this is now going to ultimately be covered by the fascia. So once again, so let me pick another color here. So this is going to represent a fascia right here. And this fascia right here is going to come together to ultimately become your tendon. Okay? So they will extend to become a tendon right there, right? So this fascia surrounds this muscle right over here, which is now going to come together to form a tendon right over here. Okay? And this tendon right here, this is the one that ultimately is going to connect to a bone. So this is now a bone right over here. So this is a bone. Okay? So that's what we have over here. So we also have other structures as well. So what are the other structures that we have? We have what is called the bursa. So what is a bursa? So a bursa right here, or bursae, plural, is a small fluid-filled sacs that are often found between tendons, okay, as well as bones, okay? Between tendons and the bones. The bursa acts as cushion, also acts as a lubrication. So what do we mean by that? So if this one right over here is a tendon right here, and then let's say we have the bursa, okay, right over here, fluid filled. Let me just redraw it over here. So let's say this is a tendon, okay? So I'll put here T, and this part over here is a bone, right over here. This is your bone, right at the bottom over here. So in between the two, you have the bursa right here. So think of the bursa as something that prevents these two from rubbing against each other. We don't want that to happen because tendon and bones rubbing to each other ultimately can damage either tendon or bone or both. Okay, so these are the bursa that prevents the damage that may occur when these two actually is going to when these two are going to be in direct contact with each other. So what else does it do? It is going to be for cushioning and for lubrication. So this bursa right over here, so when this tendon moves this way and this bone is going to move this way, now you could see this is acting like a ball bearing. Right, so if you guys know what a ball bearing is, yeah, so this is now going to allow this tendon and the bone to slide or to glide on top of each other. So that is some of the structures of our skeletal muscle. Continuing here to our next slide. So how is the muscle now going to work? So when we talk about the muscle, this is now working in pairs. So you have muscles that is going to work in pairs. How so? For a given movement, for example, origin of a muscle is the attachment site to the stationary bone. Okay? Insertion is attachment on the bone that actually moves. So what do we mean by that? So one of them, so when we talk about origin, so I just put here origin, okay? This is the stationary, okay? This is the stationary bone. So stationary bone. So that is the origin. And when we talk about the insertion, okay? So insertion, this is the one that moves. So this one is the one that moves. So the bone that is going to be moving. So what do we mean by that? So now let's take a look at this over here. So what we have here, for example, right here is your triceps. So your triceps brachii, right here. Okay? So your triceps brachii, right over here. As you can see, this is inserted in the scapula. This is your scapula right here. Sorry, not inserted. So it originates in the scapula and it's inserted in the ulna right here. So this is the insertion. This is the origin, this is the insertion. Now, if you take a look at this in this perspective here, the scapula is the stationary bone. Okay? The ulna, that's the one that moves. So always remember that when when the muscle is going to be attached to a bone, one of them is the stationary one, which is going to be the origin. The other one is the insertion, okay, which is going to be the one that's going to move. So that's what we mean by this right over here. So when a muscle contracts, it pulls on the tendon at its insertion, and now the bone moves. So now looking at this biceps over here, so this would be the origin right over here of your biceps brachii muscle. This is the insertion right over here at the radius. So when this biceps brachii contracts, as it is depicted over here, now it pulls on the radius, the bone, to move towards the body, right there. Okay, so that's what's happening here. So when this relaxes, now we could see it over here. Now we could see that it's now extended. So this is now the bone being extended over here. So when the biceps brachii contracts, it raises the forearm. So that's what's being depicted right over here. Okay, all right, skeletal muscles usually function in groups. So working in pairs, now functioning in groups. So we have these terminologies here: agonist, synergist, and your antagonist. So what do these actually mean? So when they function in groups, one muscle is going to become your prime mover, okay, or your agonist. Basically, this is the muscle that does most of the work. So the primary muscle doing the work. We have a synergist muscle. This synergist muscle is going to assist your agonist. So I'll show this in a minute over here. The antagonist, so agonist, antagonist, this is the muscle that acts opposite to the prime mover. So it's acting against the agonist right over here. So now let's take a look at these muscles over here. So the biceps brachii and the triceps brachii are antagonists. Okay? Biceps flexes the forearm, triceps extends the forearm. If both contract at once, then there would be no movement. So what do we mean by that? So this one over here, when we are flexing, okay, when we are flexing our forearm right over here, the biceps brachii is the primary muscle that is doing all that job. Okay, what is opposing this? That is now your triceps right over here. Okay, when we are now extending our forearm, now the triceps is becoming the agonist. What's opposing the triceps? It's now going to be the antagonist muscle, which is now your biceps brachii muscle. So it just depends on what we are doing. So the muscle can be the agonist or could be the antagonist, depending on the movement that we are creating, such as this example that provided over here. So that is our agonist and that is our antagonist. Another way to look at agonist and antagonist also is they are located in the opposite side of the muscle. So this one right over here and this one right over here, for example. So this one is anteriorly located and this one is posteriorly located. So they are located on the opposite side of each other. So that is the muscles functioning in groups. Next slide here. So names. So how are the muscles named? So how do we give the muscles their name? So names and actions of the skeletal muscles. So names of the skeletal muscles often use the following terms. So size matters, right? Shape, show, location, and also the direction of the muscle fiber. So what do we mean by that? So size, this one is going to matter because some of the muscles are going to be big, maximus, some are going to be small. Okay? So other terms used to indicate size. Vastus means huge. Longus meaning long. Brevis meaning short. Right? So gluteus maximus, gluteus minimus. So gluteus, so if you go to the gym, for example, and you say you're going to be working on your glutes, this is basically the buttocks, right? So this is the muscles on the buttocks. And as I mentioned, we have these big muscles and we have the small muscles. We also have the medium size as well, gluteus intermedius. So those are the muscles of the buttocks. So other terms used, or basically when you go next time to the gym and you ask your friend, what are you working on? And they say glutes, ask them which one. Again, just because we have several of them right there. So other terms as mentioned, vastus, we'll see where they are later on. Longus meaning long, brevis meaning short. The next one over here is the shape. So muscles name could be determined by what they look like or their shape. Deltoid, for example, shaped like the Greek letter delta, right? Greek letter delta. So that's your deltoid. So that this is the muscle that is on your shoulder, right? So that is the shape, Greek letter delta, deltoid. Trapezius, shaped like trapezoid, right? Your trapezius muscles. Other terms that are used would be latissimus, meaning wide, teres, meaning round. Okay, so those are the different naming of the muscles here. Again, we'll see this in the next slide as we go on with our lecture here. Location is also the one that matters here. So where are they actually located? So are they located outside or are they located inside? So outside, external, obliques. So basically, the muscle fiber is running at an angle. Internal, meaning inside. Okay, internal obliques. Frontalis, okay, overlies the frontal bone. So this is basically named after the bone as well. Pectoralis, your chest. Gluteus, once again, the buttocks. Brachii, meaning arm. Sub, meaning beneath or underneath. Okay, so that's the locations right there. Directions of the muscle fibers is also used in naming the muscles as well. Rectus, meaning it's straight. Okay, orbicularis oculi, okay, circular muscle. Orbicularis meaning circular. Oculi meaning eye. Okay? Other terms used to indicate direction are transverse, meaning going across, oblique, meaning diagonal. So that's what we mentioned right over here. External oblique meaning going diagonal. Transverse, that would be going across or just like horizontal. So let's take a look at some of these muscles here on this next slide here. So here are some of the muscles that we mentioned from the previous slide. So I'll be jumping back and forth between this slide here and the other muscle as well. So first, let's take a look at the gluteus maximus. So this one right over here, this is your gluteus maximus, big muscle. Okay, gluteus medius will be somewhere right underneath it. And then if you remove the gluteus maximus, then you have the gluteus minimus. So small ones. Trapezius, remember the shape that we mentioned? So trapezius right here, shaped like a trapezoid. There it is, shaped like a trapezoid. There goes your trapezius muscle. Latissimus dorsi, latissimus right here, meaning what? What does latissimus mean? Wide. So as you can see, this is a wide muscle right over here. Okay, so this is the muscles named after their shape, and then muscles named after their location. Here is your frontalis muscle right over here. Okay, so frontalis muscle right over here, and then we also have other muscles here. Your pectoralis major, pectoralis, chest area, location, major, big, right? Because we also have what is called your pectoralis minor, which is shown underneath right over here. Okay, so the other muscles that we mentioned is how they are going to be named by a direction of the muscle fibers. Orbicularis oculi, orbicularis meaning circular or round. Here is your orbicularis oculi, so round muscle of the eye. We also have what is called your orbicularis oris, which is the round muscle of the mouth right here. And then the muscle fibers, rectus meaning straight right here. So rectus abdominis right over here. So the muscle fibers are going straight. The obliques, right? The external outside. So external oblique right over here. So that is now again another muscle showing us the direction of the fibers right there. And then we have other muscles here as well. So the one here is your vastus lateralis and your medialis. So this one will be the vastus medialis, vastus lateralis, and as we mentioned already, vastus meaning it's huge. So that's the huge muscle of the leg. All right, continue on with our lecture here. So again, there are some other muscles here that I'm not going to be talking about much more in detail, but please make sure to study this slide right here. Next one here shows us the names and actions of the skeletal muscles. So the names of the skeletal muscles often use the following terms to characterize them. So we already mentioned about the location, right? External obliques and the internal obliques. Frontalis, we talk about it being found in the frontal bone. Okay? Other terms for location, pectoralis. Again, we mentioned this one here already. Okay? Pectoralis means the chest. Gluteus meaning buttocks. Brachii meaning the arm. Okay? Direction, we also mentioned this one as well. So rectus abdominis meaning straight. Orbicularis oris meaning around the eye. So those are some of the namings right here. Now, attachment, okay? Sternocleidomastoid is attached to the sternum, the clavicle, and the mastoid process. So here is that muscle right over here. So sternum, this is the sternum, this is the clavicle. So sternocleidomastoid is at the back, so that would be right back here. So mastoid muscle. So this is now the attachment of that particular muscle here. So sternocleidomastoid attached to the sternum, the clavicle, and the mastoid process. Brachioradialis, okay? Brachioradialis attached to the brachium, meaning the arm. Radius, your forearm, right there. So brachioradialis. So that would be somewhere around. It's not really shown here, guys. Sorry about that. So, but it would be around here. So the brachium of the arm would be around here. So we have to remove the biceps here to see it. And then it goes to the radius right here. So that is the brachioradialis muscle. Number of attachments, biceps brachii, meaning what? So biceps, bi meaning 2. It has 2 attachments. Quadriceps femoris, quad meaning 4. It has 4 origins right there. And then finally you have the action here, extensor digitorum. So extensor meaning it's extend. Okay? It's extend what? Extends digitorum, digits. So that's your fingers. So it extends the digits. Adductor, meaning you have adductor longus, adducts the thigh. It closes, these are the muscles that closes the thigh. Flexor, to bend. masseter to chew, and then levator to lift. Kind of like elevator. That's how I remember this. Levator, elevator. So to lift. That's why over here. And then once again, masseter to chew, and then flexor to bend. All right, continue on to the next slide here. Now shows us the microscopic anatomy of the muscle fiber here. So muscle fibers and how they slide. So now we're gonna be talking about the how the physiology of this muscle actually works in order for it to create movement. And I will continue this in our next series of our lecture.